Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's What's Up Wednesday, where we are going live with you on Facebook and LinkedIn every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about our upcoming 23rd Annual International Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference, hosted virtually this year on September 23rd through the 25th. My name is Anna Schramm, and I am the organizer of this amazing conference, working alongside Dr. Celia Williamson, based in Toledo, Ohio. So today we have a special guest with us. Dr. Charles Hanmanu is an associate professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago. He has conducted research on trafficking in the United States and in West Africa, and has over 25 publications on the topic. So hi, Charles. I'm so glad that you joined us today.
Hello, Anna. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so glad that you are here. So today we are focusing on our international presentations at this year's conference. So over the last month or so, we have already talked about our art sessions, our direct service sessions, our legal and law enforcement sessions. I've talked about how diverse of a conference we are, with a lot of different topics from a lot of different professionals. So today we are focusing on our international sessions, like I said, so learning about what is happening in different parts of the world. So we are an international conference, so discussing human trafficking and social justice happening in other parts of the world is a must. But before we get too much into that, Charles, can you just start us off by introducing yourself and talk about the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Before I get to that, I just realized that there was some internet disconnection on my side. If it should happen again, I will have to switch to my phone, okay?
Okay, you look good right now, so fingers crossed that it works.
Okay, so what was your question?
If you can just introduce yourself and talk about some of the work that you do.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. Yeah, so I'm Charles Hanmanu. I am originally from Benin in West Africa. I have been in the US for almost 15 years now. After getting my doctorate here, I went back and came as a professor in the US. Regarding my work on human trafficking, I have to say that I have been doing research on human trafficking since 2008. Okay, and I was the first person to have ever done research on coalition building and human trafficking. That was in 2009, and then my second biggest study on human trafficking was on comparing child trafficking and child migration in 3 countries in West Africa. That was in Benin, Burkina Faso, and Niger. That was around 2013 and 2014. That was really a big study, because it was the first time ever we had such a study. And following that, my latest research, I can say, in sub-Saharan Africa was conducted in Cote d'Ivoire. I conducted a multi-level study on child trafficking prevalence in Cote d'Ivoire. The study has 7 components. The last component was actually estimating the population of children in 3 forms of child trafficking: child begging, child domestic work, and child commercial sexual exploitation. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. You have done some really important work in the research field, specifically in Africa. Like you said, you've done a lot of first studies of its kind. So I thank you for the work that you do, and I'm glad that we get to work together. But can you talk about the importance of having international perspectives at a conference like this, and also why it's important to include other countries in conversations of anti-trafficking work?
Sure. Most of research conducted on human trafficking originates from Europe or the US, and even when international presenters or researchers are conducting studies, they are using the lens. They are using the mainstream lens in analyzing data, in analyzing services, in analyzing policy. Now, sometimes when you are an international, researcher, you need to have a detached look and try to use your own perspective. That helps, researchers from the northern countries to know that the way they investigate issues, the way they explore issues, should not use only one side, one lens. People have to take into account other countries' values, cultures, realities, which are different from what we know in the US. I am lucky to have actually lived on both sides. I lived in countries in Africa. I lived sometimes in Europe. I lived in the US. So I have my own perspectives that I bring up that sometimes people don't like, but they eventually like the way I put the issues. That's why sometimes people call me to present, to talk about how things are, and they are surprised about my views. For example, I was the only person who has been able to show that commercial sexual exploitation in the global south is different from what we have known so far. So I was able to conduct kind of a review of distinctive aspects of commercial sexual exploitation in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, compared to the US, and I compared that to show that there are differences people should take into account when they talk about commercial sexual exploitation. The same happened with child domestic work. Child domestic work is completely different when you compare what happens in the global north and the global south. And I have highlighted that in my study. So international perspectives are very important, but the researcher who is international, you should be detached and really bring the perspective, not be afraid of telling what they think is right or wrong. That's what I try to do. And that's why I always try to bring up topics few people have touched on so far. I try to be distinctive in my study and try to be distinctive in the way I analyze the information.
Yeah, you make a lot of great points. I think taking into account the other countries' cultures, other countries' perspectives. One of the things I love about this conference is how many perspectives and cultures that we have and how we can learn from each other. And it's not the same. Human trafficking and exploitation are not the same in different countries, whether it's, developing countries, developed countries, global south, global north. It just looks differently. So I love that we have those different perspectives. So you've been involved with our conference for many, many years, back when it was in person and now that it is virtual. So can you talk about your experience with our conference and why you keep coming back?
Okay. I am lucky to have been presenting at this conference since the start. Yes, around I think 2008 or 9. That's when I joined the conference. I presented in 2008. That's when I met Celia Williamson for the first time. And this lady she has been a great mentor for me. And the first time she met with me, she was giving me, advice about how to navigate the research system, how to do things. And I value that. Since then, I have really tried to apply what she has told me and always eager to meet her at the conference. 2009, I was there, 2011, and then in 2012, I left the US to go back to my country. And then I came back in 2015. And since 2015, I have consistently participated in the conference. Sometimes I say, I should not be presenting all the time. I just, join to meet friends in person. And then we turn into that conference into virtual. And I'm also enjoying that, making friends around the world and bringing my perspective. So I really enjoyed the conference, and I'm happy to have been part of it from the start and to have been also involved in other aspects of the conference and also enjoying the mentoring experience I got from Celia Williamson.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you had a good memory of remembering how far back it's been and how many conferences you've attended. You've really been an integral part of the conference and have brought great information every time that you have come and presented. So you are actually presenting again at this year's conference. Your session is titled Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children in Cote d'Ivoire, Prevalence, Characteristics, and Needs. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about the most recent research that you've been doing in Cote d'Ivoire. So I'm sure you're going to be covering a lot of great information in your session, but can you give us a little sneak peek of what you're going to be talking about in your session?
Sure. When we talk about commercial sexual exploitation of children, we know that people have almost the same perspectives, and the same perspective meaning they got the reality from the mainstream literature. Yet, commercial sexual exploitation of children, what we call CSEC, is not the same in every region. Okay, and in 2023, I and other researchers from University of Massachusetts Lowell and Nork at the University of Chicago, we got a U.S. Department grant to conduct a multi-level study we call formative research on child trafficking in Cote d'Ivoire. So one of the studies in this research was to conduct three prevalent studies on child begging, forced child begging, and child domestic work, and commercial sexual exploitation of children. And now coming back to commercial sexual exploitation, which I'm going to present on, we used what people call, researchers called respondent-driven sampling. It's a method in which you recruit, the first people you recruit who are highly eligible, you call them seeds. You give the seeds some coupons. They use the coupons to try to help you to find people highly eligible, similar to them. And when those people are recruited, you give them also coupons to help recruit others. So seeds will recruit others, who become seeds to recruit others. That allows the researchers to establish a chain about which seed has a powerful connection, and how to really know how each seeds are connected to multiple or thousands of people. When we did that, we encountered some difficulties because children who were seeds were not willing to really give a coupon to the people who looked like them. So that had in some way hurt our data collection. In any case, we were able to compensate that issue to using statistical analysis. I am not an expert at that. We have statistical analysis experts on our group who were able to estimate, and we're able to see that at least 9,000 children were in a situation of commercial sexual exploitation in not in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan. We focused on Abidjan. Let me go back and say that at first, we wanted to conduct the study on the whole Cote d'Ivoire, but we realized because of funding, we could not. And we realized Abidjan, which is the capital, is a microcosm of Cote d'Ivoire. So we said, let's focus on Abidjan. And Abidjan has a population of children between age 1 to age 18, 2 million children. Wow. Anyway, based on our method, we were able to estimate that there were more than 9,000 children in CSEC. But we realized that that estimate we got was flawed. Because our respondent-driven sampling method didn't work well. So it's a conservative estimate. In any case, that shows that the issue was rampant in Cote d'Ivoire. In our findings, we were able to see that there is a type of CSEC in Cote d'Ivoire that may not be known elsewhere, and that is called BIZI. BIZI is a phenomenon in which girls will share, they have a social media kind of group, and they share their phone number and with their pictures, and foreigners or people in the country looking for them can choose any girl below age 18 or beyond that to meet with and pay and have, sexual transaction. Another thing we found was what we call sexual tontine. Tontine is a form of, social group in which you share everything. So normally tontine is a money-based group in which people get together, and every month they have to contribute the same amount, and one person will collect the whole amount until everybody every month is able to get their share. Now, these kids in secondary school in Côte d'Ivoire, they have developed something called sexual tontine. So young boys below age 18 in secondary school, they get together, they put together some money so that they can pay one or two girls, and all the boys who have contributed will share that girl in the same room, and they do that every week. That is something not known, and we have found that. Another thing our study showed was that most of the children in CSEC in Côte d'Ivoire are not foreigners. These are children from Côte d'Ivoire living with their parents. Our study also showed that we noticed that actually those children, they have a lot of needs, but no one cares about them. Our study also showed that more than 50% of the girls, we focus on girls, in this business, they did not use condom. They don't use condoms, which means that they're highly exposed to different type of sexually transmissible diseases and so on, but nothing is done about it. And we plan now to get another grant to go and develop some type of intervention-based program to help the government. That's a little I can say about what I'm going to present on.
Well, even just that little bit, I feel like I learned so much, and that's very, new and groundbreaking research to have gotten those findings about these new types of trafficking or new types of exploitation that are happening, and all the luck to get additional funding to be able to go back and implement some of those interventions. So I know that's going to be a great session. If those who are listening want to hear more from Charles and the work that he's doing, make sure that you do register for our conference. So that website is on the bottom of our screen. That's traffickingconference.com/register. I do want to highlight a couple of the other international sessions that people can attend at the conference. Remember, we do have over 110 breakout sessions at this year's conference. There's such a variety of sessions to choose from. So this is just going to be a couple that I'm listing. But if you are registered for the conference, you have access to the recorded sessions that you can then watch for up to 3 weeks after the conference. So you are able to catch up on things that you missed. But some of the ones that I would like to mention are, first, we have Dr. Julia Tomas, who will be talking about enhancing human trafficking prevention in the UK homelessness sector, a national study on structural risk and early intervention. Then Patrick Hansen, Dr. Marta Furlan, and Dr. Angela Robinson will be presenting on participatory investigation into the dynamics of coercion and resilience during and after the sexual exploitation of Indigenous Bolivian women. Next, Dr. Chamanungwa Nyoni will be talking about emerging routes, patterns, and dynamics of human trafficking, insights from the Center of Combating Human Trafficking in Zimbabwe. Then we have Sarah Warner, who will be presenting on financing conflict, the use of human trafficking to support armed groups, terrorism, and local economies during humanitarian crises. And then we have Dr. Vijay Raghavan, who will be talking about bride trafficking in India, an emerging threat to human dignity. So that's a lot of sessions, but there's several other international sessions, including topics from countries like Brazil, Canada, the Philippines, Spain, and Uganda. So make sure to check out our full schedule on our website. We have everything up there already, so you can read the bios of the presenters, the descriptions of the presentation. So check out that website. I love to see all of the diversity of different countries that are represented at this conference. So, Charles, is there anything else that you would like to add today before we wrap up?
First of all, I want to thank you very much for this initiative that provides people, an idea about what to expect during the actual conference. I think this is a new idea. I don't know if you have done that last year. If you did that last year, it's a great idea so that people can choose what they want to be attending. It's very important. So I like the idea, and I want to apologize again for being late in joining you for this session. And I hope to see everyone at my presentation to really give them more than they have heard from me today. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining me on today's What's Up Wednesday. As mentioned, we go live on Facebook and LinkedIn every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Leading up to our conference, we're going to continue to highlight different sessions and topics that you can attend. So next week, we have special guest Logan Knight, who will be talking about our research session. So if you want to learn more about anything that we talked about today, how to register, the schedule, different sessions you can attend, go to our website, traffickingconference.com, for more information. So we look forward to seeing you back here next week. Thank you, Charles, for joining, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.